Hi, my name is Sky Nelson, and I'm a physicist, and I study synchronicity, of all things. And so I'm going to talk about why is synchronicity a key for transforming our society. Now, synchronicity means basically a meaningful coincidence that you might have had in your life. And I'm also a musician, and I'm also an activist, and I've been involved with Occupy quite a bit. And it's inspired some of these thoughts tonight. So we all know that there's political problems. We don't have to argue about that. You know, we don't have to look very far to see them. There's greed, there's the environmental problems. But I'm happy in the Occupy movement that we haven't jumped to the idea of suggesting laws and demanding things, because the minute we lay out a law, it's going to be rolled up behind us because people are greedy and they want to get around those laws. So as long as there's greed in the system, we're going to be creating the same problems that we're supposedly trying to solve. So here we are, the 99%, pointing the finger over at the 1% and saying, those guys are so greedy. Oh my God, we have to stop the greed. But I want to take a step back and look at myself a little deeper for a minute, be a little reflective. So I'm also greedy. Where does greed come from? Well, I have a need to be right. I want to be right. I like to get my way. And where does that come from? Why do I need to fight with you? Well, because I have a worldview that we are separate from each other. So I need to fight for what I want from you. So I would suggest that even if we're on the brink of utopia, talking about the most beautiful, enlightening topic, at some point we're going to butt heads because you and I are going to have a different idea, and I need to be right, and you need to be right, and we're going to get mad at each other. So this worldview eventually leads to arguing and overpowering, and I've seen this in some of the General Assemblies at Occupy, where we're dealing with this utopic thing, but people are arguing, and I'm like, you can't just get rid of the greed, you have to go deeper than that to get rid of this whole thing that's causing you to argue. So how do we deal, for instance, with anger? Well, anger controlled can be transmuted into a power that can move the world. So we don't need to repress our anger. We also don't need to express it and barf it all over everybody. So instead of throwing that firebomb into the police, you can transmute that energy that you feel into speaking passionately and getting the courage to get up on stage and speak to people about what you believe, harnessing the energy in the bomb to build a nuclear reactor that can power your movement. And until we deal with that fundamental issue at the bottom of the pile, the worldview that we all share, we're never going to have a good night's sleep. We're going to keep shifting the sheets around. We're going to keep changing the president or changing the Congress or whatever, but the problem's not going to go away, and we're going to wonder why. So how do we get rid or change this pesky little worldview that we have? Well, we need to create a worldview in which things and events in the world are meaningful, not just random, and that we are connected to each other. We have a sense of connection to each other. And this is where my work in physics, I think, comes in. Relativity starts out by saying light does not experience time or space. So the Lorentz transformation here says that a light beam traveling from you to me is going to experience exactly zero difference in time and difference in space between us. So even though you and I are separate, even though the Earth and the Sun are separate, the light beam is going to leave the Sun and travel along a number of different possible paths, be retroactively collapsed into one of those paths when it's observed at the Earth. And that retroactive collapse is possible because there's no physical separation from the light's point of view between the Earth and the Sun. Just like there's no physical separation between you and I. You and I seem like we're separate, and we are in the physical world, but the light bouncing between us, that is certainly bouncing right now, is not experiencing that separateness the way we do. And this leads to a deeper concept called the Fourier realm. And if you do a Fourier transform with a mathematical operation on any object, say me, you get a representation of that same object without any variables of time and space. So time and space are completely gone from the description of the object. You get what's called a spectrum of frequencies. And your spectrum of frequencies is not separate in physical space from mine. They in some way are co-located in this frequency realm, this Fourier realm. And so there's no physical separation between us in this particular way of looking at things. And light experiences that all the time. So this leads, with a little bit of work, to this idea of trees of histories. So my future might contain different possible futures, one in which I'm fighting with my friend, the other in which we're actually hanging out on a beach enjoying each other. And if I live my life in the present from this angry point of view, you can bet I'm going to collapse myself into a future where I'm surrounded by anger and violence and all that stuff. So where does this lead us? Well, the events, the actions we're taking now, I'm trying to show lead to similar events or similar opportunities opening up from that. So if we live one way now, if we take actions towards what we believe, we'll find opportunities towards what we believe, or the opposite. So my summary is that let the meaningful coincidences or the synchronicities that come into our lives guide the way instead of our own stubborn, persistent need to be right. Thank you.